California built its reputation on aggressive emissions policy, but in doing so, it may have created a problem it can no longer ignore. Classic car owners who represent a tiny fraction of vehicles on the road have been caught in a regulatory system designed for modern technology, not decades-old machines. And now, a bipartisan effort backed by Jay Leno is forcing lawmakers to confront a simple question. Should rarely driven collector cars be regulated the same way as a daily commuter? I think we already know the answer to that. It should be no. So Senate Bill 1392, better known as Leno's Law, suggests the answer may finally be no. Backed by legendary car enthusiast Jay Leno, SB 1392 aims to carve out a narrow, carefully structured exemption for California's biannual smog check requirements for qualified collector vehicles. The bill is authorized by Dave Cortese and co-authored by Shannon Grove, signaling a rare moment of cooperation in a deeply divided political environment known as California that alone makes this proposal worth examining. At its core, the legislation is not a blanket rollback of emission standards. Instead, it acknowledges a practical reality that regulators have struggled to address. Classic cars are fundamentally different from modern daily drivers, both in how they are built and how they are used. The bill applies strictly to collector vehicles, requires proof of collector car insurance at registration, and phases in eligibility gradually based on model year. At its core, the legislation is not a blanket rollback of emission standards. Instead, it acknowledges a practical reality that regulators have struggled to address. Classic cars are fundamentally different from modern daily drivers, both in how they're built and how they are used. The bill applies strictly to collector vehicles, requires proof of collector car insurance at registration, and phases in eligibility gradually based on model year. This is not an open door, it's a controlled adjustment. The issue SB 1392 seeks to fix is both technical and logistical. Modern emissions testing relies heavily on OBD2 systems, which became standard in vehicles manufactured after 1996. Pre-OBD2 vehicles, which make up a bulk of classic cars, require specialized testing equipment that is becoming increasingly rare. As a result, owners often face higher costs and fewer options just to comply with regulations that were never designed with their vehicles in mind. Data from the Motor Equipment Manufacturers Association, known as MEMA, highlights just how small this segment really is. Only about 7% of smog inspections in California involve pre-OBD2 vehicles, that's previous to 96. Even more telling, many STAR-certified testing stations handle fewer than one such vehicle per day. In other words, the regulatory burden is disproportionately high relevant to the actual environmental impact. So there's very little environmental impact. And that environmental impact is a key part of the debate. Critics of the exemption often argue that any relaxation of emission standards could set a dangerous precedent. But SB 1392 is structured to reflect real-world usage patterns. Classic cars are typically driven sparingly on weekends, car shows, community events, not as daily transportation. Their contribution to overall emissions is minimal, and when compared to the millions of modern vehicles on California's road every day, this is obviously a huge difference. Supporters of the bill, including the Specialty Equipment Market Association known as SEMA, argue that the current system places unnecessary strain on both enthusiasts and small businesses. The aftermarket industry plays a significant role in California's economy, with SEMA representing nearly 1,100 member businesses in that state alone. The broader impact is substantial, contributing more than $40 billion in economic activity, supporting roughly 150,000 or more jobs, and generating billions in wages and tax revenue. You certainly don't want to ignore that group. From a policy standpoint, SB 1392 attempts to strike a balance between environmental responsibility and economic and cultural preservation. It does not eliminate emission standards, nor does it ignore environmental concerns. Instead, it updates the framework to better align with technological realities and actual vehicle usage. This is where the conversation becomes larger than just the state of California. Regulations enacted in that state often influence policy decisions across the country. If SB 1392 passes, it could serve as a model for other states grappling with similar issues: how to regulate legacy vehicles in a way that both is fair and effective without imposing unnecessary burdens on its owners, or shall we say its voters when it comes to politicians. There is also a cultural dimension that cannot be ignored. Classic cars are more than just machines. They represent decades of engineering, evolution, design, innovation, and personal expression. They connect generations from those who remember those vehicles as new to younger enthusiasts discovering them for the first time. Preserving that history requires policies that recognize their unique status. For classic car owners, the stakes are practical as well as philosophical. Compliance has become increasingly difficult as fewer shops maintain the equipment needed to test older vehicles. Costs have risen, availability has declined, and the process has grown more complicated. SB 1392 offers a path forward that reduces these barriers without abandoning oversight. That measured approach may be why this version of Leno's law has a stronger foundation than previous efforts. By limiting eligibility, requiring documentation, and phasing in changes over time, the bill avoids the pitfalls of a broader exemption that might face stronger opposition. The question now is whether lawmakers and regulators are willing to embrace a more nuanced approach. California has built its reputation on aggressive environmental policy, and any adjustment will be scrutinized closely. But SB 1392 does not represent a retreat from those goals. It represents an attempt to refine them. For enthusiasts, industry stakeholders, and policymakers alike, this is a moment worth watching. The outcome will not just determine how California treats its classic cars. It could shape the nationwide conversation about how we balance innovation, regulation, and preservation in the automotive world. If nothing else, SB 1392 forces a necessary discussion. It challenges the assumption that a one-size-fits-all regulation never works. And it's important that we raise this question so we can protect the future without erasing the past. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this, and check out our car review channel, Car Smarts. You can support me by buying me a cup of coffee, and if you want even more content, check out the links in the description. I'm Lauren Fix. Thank you so much for watching.